Network.com.
Welcome to the Football Show. I'm Peter Martin. Delighted to have your company. Tam McManus and Alison McConnell here with me. Well, lots to talk about. Weekend of one big shock at Celtic Park as Ross County knocked the current League Cup holders out of the tournament. Aberdeen also out, and is there a real chance now for Rangers as red-hot favourites to pick up the trophy? Give us your thoughts on that. Neil Lennon, will he be axed over the next 24 hours? He's still in the job as we speak. Give us your thoughts on that on our Facebook. You can like, share and follow us on YouTube as well. If you see the red button, hit subscribe and join the football family, and on Twitter as well. We're delighted to have you as we go out live on Periscope. So Alison and Tam are here with me. Let's cut to the chase on this one. 2-0 to Ross County. Let's not take anything away from them. Tam McManus, they did what they had to do. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. Celtic were in the same old movie, and in the end, Stuart Kettlewell's side got the win.
Yeah, first and foremost, as you said, you've got to give credit to Ross County. They came with a game plan. They got the goal. They held on to it well. And I don't think they were troubled at any point by Celtic, who were dreadful in both boxes. I felt Ross County thoroughly deserved it, and they've been struggling, Ross County as well. So for them to come to Celtic Park, even though Celtic not playing well, to come to Celtic Park and put them out the cup, the first team to beat them in the cup for over 4 years is a huge result for Ross County. So you got to give them credit. But for Celtic, it was just the same old story. It was just shocking performance again. Julian's come into the team. He's been hopeless for the last 2 games. He's defensive. He doesn't sniff out danger. He doesn't see people behind him. Again, for the penalty kick yesterday, the ball's played across the goal. He's no idea that the striker's in behind him and he fouls him. It was the same against Sparta Prague the other night. And all over the park, Celtic were just not at it. There's players there who are getting away with murder because there's no fans there, Peter. The fans would certainly be letting them know that it's not good enough, but they're getting away with it because there's no one there. They've no one to answer to, bar the manager, who, to be honest, they're throwing Neil Lennon under the bus with their performances just now. So, no, it's been nowhere near good enough. And I think Neil Lennon will play his job this week.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about the expectation that he's going to lose his job. And you mentioned there's no fans to give him a lot of criticism at the end of these games when they're not going according to plan, just 2 wins in 10. But there were a number of so-called fans who turned up after the game, and when Neil Lennon walked into the press room, then you could hear them shouting, and some of the stuff they were shouting was quite simply not worth mentioning. But to be perfectly honest with you, it was a few hundred fans, yobs, neds, troublemakers. I don't think they were what you would call your stereotypical Celtic fan. And if anybody wants to disagree on this, what right-thinking, sensible person decides it would be a good idea to go out of their house, head to an area, congregate without any social distancing, and throw fences at the police? So I think I've summed them up fairly well. I watched the game yesterday. Over the 90 minutes, I think I've seen this movie so many times, Roughie, which is quite simply they play in front of a very tight, packed 11 players who are happy to defend. They go left, they go right. They don't have the options to get past a man. They've got nobody that can break a team down by going past them or dribbling past them. And they just became their usual predictable selves, Roughie.
Yeah, they are. They're lacking in confidence. There's no doubt about that. There's no leadership on the park. There's nobody prepared to take the game by the scruff of the neck, which usually happens, when you get that kind of environment at a football club. That's a disappointment, I think for Neil Lennon, obviously, that there's not one person prepared to put himself a shift in here. And it's just poor, and you're right in what you're saying. It's how low can it go, and this is the lowest, and now we're just waiting to see what kind of decision the board make, because they will be meeting, there's no doubt about it, there will be discussions, and it remains to be seen how it goes.
Here's a Celtic statement on the trouble at the game, and of course the First Minister has been quoted on this as well. Everyone at the club is hugely disappointed by the result, one which has ended our phenomenal run of 35 consecutive cup victories. Well, we sincerely share the huge disappointment of all Celtic fans. There can be no excuse for the violent scenes at Celtic Park. The club will be investigating these events fully. For players and a management team who have given so much and have delivered 11 consecutive trophies, to require an escort from Celtic Park while being targeted with missiles is simply unacceptable. So that's the gist of the statement coming from Celtic. It is a small amount of fans, Ali. I think, though, to be perfectly honest with you, if you're going to be blunt about this, and we'll hear from Neil Lennon, we'll hear from Ryan Christie as well, the game's up. There's no point in talking about it because, you build up personal relationships with managers and you get to know them well. I know Neil really well. The record's not good enough. 2 wins in 10 with a team that's, at times clueless, and some of the signings have been poor, and the buck stops with the manager, and he knows his time is up.
I think you come a point where you just run out of road. I think the board were prepared to back him until January. But the caveat with that is that you don't wobble again domestically, that you go out and you win all your domestic games between now and the visit to Ibrox. But that obviously hasn't happened. And Neil will know himself. I think a lot of people will have some sympathy for his position because the sword is just hanging over him now, and it's been a question of when rather than if. But I also think the manager has come in for fairly intense criticism. I think you mentioned the small body of fans, if you want to call them that, standing outside the ground yesterday who made their feelings clear. The board have come in for the same flack. But what about the players? There are a number of players in that dressing room who shouldn't be able to look at themselves in the mirror. The performances have been a disgrace. There's no way that they can look at themselves and say that they've given everything for the cause. There was absolutely no fight, no spirit, no heart, no soul about that performance yesterday against Ross County. And some of those players have to carry the can for where Celtic find themselves today.
Well, I think we're all on a waiting game. Everybody across the media, whether it's the written press, the radio or the television, we're waiting for that call from Celtic Park to say there's an announcement coming out or there's a press conference which explains the situation or there's a new manager coming in. That's basically what everybody is waiting on at the moment. Neil Lennon yesterday said that he doesn't know if the board are going to finally end his second tenure as manager.
I've told you all I had a conversation with Dermot and Peter on Friday, and we want to find solutions to the problems that we're having. Obviously, on evidence today, we're still having the same problems. But I can't say what decisions the board may or may not make.
Yeah, I think there was an air of resignation about him yesterday, Tam.
Yeah, but I think he knows, Peter. He knows himself that his time's up at Celtic. I think you've seen it in his interview there. He's deflated. He doesn't know what to do. And I feel sorry for him now. I think he's tried everything. He's maybe, the carrot and the stick with the players. He's slaughtered them. He's wanted more. He's put his arm around them. I think he's run out of ideas, Peter. And I think his time's up at Celtic. And Neil Lennon has been a legend as a player and as a manager. He's won everything at the club. Played in a European final for the club as well. And you don't want to see his reputation being tarnished. And I think now, the longer it goes, the more his reputation has been tarnished amongst the supporters when it shouldn't be. So I think for everybody, even for Neil Lennon's sake as well, he needs to be removed from the job. If he doesn't resign himself, then he needs to be removed because I think that's it. That's it for him at Celtic. I think yesterday's performance, as Alison said, was lacking backbone, lacking heart. You had players out there who weren't given 100%. And when that happens, the manager's going to pay the price, and I think he will pay the price over the next few days.
Yeah, it's not as if he's making excuses. He mentioned this yesterday. He's not going to make excuses to the genuine fans.
So what can I say? That's their opinion. It's been rumbling for a while, and it doesn't matter what I say or what sort of bravado I put on it. It won't wash. I have to turn it around with results. And I can only do that with the players.
Yeah, and we've mentioned the players. I mean, I think, excuse me, more than a few weeks ago, Roughie, I just put out a tweet, which is basically that defence is the type of defence that gets a manager sacked. And that's where we are, weeks from that tweet.
Yeah, I mean, we're there now because of the result on Saturday, because we all said on Friday that from now till whenever, the first mistake that's made, then that will add more pressure onto it. And that particular result at the weekend does that, But the irony of this whole thing is that whoever it is, if it was going to happen, if ever it comes in, it's got the same bunch of players. And if that same bunch of players cannot do it for Neil Lennon, I don't see how they can do it for somebody else, because they're so bad. We've seen it before. Other managers come in, it doesn't instantly work. So the board have got a massive decision to make. I personally think the only thing that saves him is his loyalty to the club and his service to the club as a player, as a manager, somebody coming in to fill the gap. And it'd be the first time a board, for me, has, if they do stand by him for another 2 or 3 games, it'd be the first time for me that a board has stood by somebody because of the loyalty to a club, because they have every right to sack him. There's no doubt about that. So it'll be interesting to see what they say when they come out of this one, because there's no doubt about it. As a servant to a club and the time that he's been there, he deserves a lot of credit and he deserves time, if you want to say it. But there obviously is time on time. So it'll be interesting to see what the board say. It would be a massive boost to him if the board were to say, right, because of what you've done at this club, we're going to give you a couple of games, because another couple of games isn't going to kill the club, and the main thing is the league, and the league position hasn't moved anywhere at all. I just feel that what he's done there, he should be given time, but if he is sacked, then I can see why.
Well, I have to disagree with you, Roughie, on that one, because a couple of games from now, the league could be over.
The league's definitely finised, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you've got to do it now, Peter.
Yeah, well, the other thing about it, the big problem here is...
Tam, it's okay to say you've got to do it now. Who are we bringing in? Who's coming in?
Well, the point here... The point here, Roughie, is quite simply, before you even get to the who's coming in, you get a situation here where the fans' anger, and I'm talking about fans who are looking at it now and seeing this obsession with 10 in a row, and they look at it and they see this 2 wins in 10, not good enough. Poor performance against Ferencváros, Champions League, gone. Poor performances in the Europa League against mediocre sides, gone. Lose to Rangers meekly at Celtic Park, game, gone. Rangers 11 points clear, despite the fact they've got 2 games in hand. What happens with fans is they look at the manager, they call for his head, and then what happens, when the board don't act, they then turn their attention and say, you're not fit for purpose. And they start looking at board members and they start making decisions which financially at Celtic at the moment, it's fine when they've got the season ticket money in. But in this season of all seasons, they'll start to call for the heads of the board members. And there's nothing like smart men with money to start axing the minions before they fall off the board. So that's exactly what will happen here. They'll start to look, Alison, at another target, and that's going to be in the next 24 to 48 hours. The Celtic board, if they are indecisive.
Of course it will. I mean, there was an indication of that last night. Now, I thought the scenes last night after the game were embarrassing. I think for a guy like Neil Lennon to walk into his press conference and have that overshadowed and have it audible coming through, I think it is shameful, to be honest. And I don't think it reflects well on the body that stood outside. And I take their right that there is a huge level of anger at the decision to back him and let it get out of hand to the way it is. But I would also say that there is division throughout the club now, and when you come in and you change the manager, there is discord between fans themselves, those that haven't appreciated the way that Neil Lennon has been treated, even people who have come out and said, I think his time is up, I'm not sure he's the right man for the job. I think there's division about the manner in which those grievances have been aired. I think you can see a division within the dressing room. I think you can see division between the manager and the players. It looks like a club just now where the discord is emanating from top to bottom, and I'm not sure that that's entirely solved when you bring in a new manager.
Well, listen, the one thing about it, I mean, Neil Lennon himself has pointed out some of the stats that, have been positive, never mind the negative ones. You can see here from the win ratio, it's quite simply not good enough. There it is. Second term, 72.5%. First time around, 70%. Brendan Rodgers, 69. Gordon Strachan, 65. Ronnie Dyler, 63.5. And look what happened to him. Tony Mowbray, 51. Out of all of them, the stats are certainly up there. The problem is with the other stats that we're talking about, Rangers were not winning the games regularly, Roughie, and that increases the pressure. You have a better Rangers side now, making a bigger challenge, playing better football. They're the best team in Scotland by some distance around a crumbling Celtic side.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you've said. You can't take away from the disappointment and all the results that have gone on. And Neil Lennon is big enough to know that these are the kind of results that get you the sack. It's just we have to wait and see which way the board's going. And I get you. I get, what you're saying. Once it's directed at the board panic and they make the decision. And I get all that as well. The only point I was making it'd be good for once in a long, long time for somebody to show somebody a bit of respect and what he's done at the club and the record that he's got there. It's not happening just now. You can't dispute that. It's the worst for a long, 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 long time. And he thinks he can turn it round. But tell me any manager who won't say, I can turn this round. But as he said there, the only way he turns it round is if he wins games, and he's not doing that. And he'll want a chance to do it. But the thing is, how long do you wait for? And you're right in everything you're saying. They've every right to sack him. If they sacked him, then there would be no complaints at all, because of the results that are there in front of them. But I just think this team, if they started winning games again, they would want to have a serious look at themselves with the performances they're putting in the now.
I think sometimes, Peter, you need to get saved from yourself. And I don't think there's any doubt that Neil Lennon thinks he can turn it around. But I don't think he can. I don't think anybody believes that he can. I don't think the players believe that he can. So I think that's why I think that he needs to go. And I think that Celtic have gave him. I don't think Celtic have played well all season. It's not just the game yesterday or the European game. I don't think I've watched Celtic this season, whether it's been live or whether it's been on the TV, and I've said, by the way, Celtic played really well there. I don't think I've said that once this season, bar maybe the second half against Hibs at Parkhead when they won 3-0. It's the only time that I've said, by the way, Celtic were good there. They've been poor all season. So it's not just the last few games. It's been right for the start of the season that they've been poor, and it's just coming to a head now.
Yeah, even the manager highlighting the stats isn't cutting it now.
Neil Lennon said on Friday that he had the full backing of the Celtic board, but after Sunday's 2-0 home loss in the Betfred Cup to Ross County, is that still the case? His side have now been eliminated from the Champions League, Europa League and League Cup already this campaign and are 11 points behind Rangers in the league, although they do have last season's Scottish Cup final against Hearts in 3 weeks' time. The Hoops have won just 2 of their last 10 matches, and it reached a head with hundreds of fans breaking lockdown to protest outside Celtic Park after the final whistle. After Brendan Rodgers' exit in spring 2019, Lennon came in and delivered the treble before making it a 9th consecutive title a year later, as well as a League Cup, looking all set to attempt an historic 10th in a row. In his 90 matches back in charge, he's won 66 and lost only 12, but despite the fact that his win percentage is 3% higher than his first tenure a decade ago, this campaign's stats and performances have been down. Also, many of the most damaging results have come at the previously impenetrable Parkhead, including 2 Old Firm defeats and losses to Cluj, Copenhagen, Ferencvaros, Sparta Prague and now Ross County. The decision Chief Executive Peter Lowen has is whether to stick with his previous position to back the manager or does he twist in an attempt to turn around Celtic's season.
Yeah, you can give us your views on that. We'll be reading out a few of your messages on Facebook shortly as well. And I think the general consensus is time is up. But there are still some who share Roughie's view on this. But, I think we're now actually starting to look at potentially who could come in to replace him. And of course, there are 2 main names that I think are in the running, Alison. One of them is Martin O'Neill, and the other one is Gordon Strachan. Strachan now the favourite ahead of Eddie Howe. I would suggest to you, both of them would have to be offered, one, a fairly extensive package which will reward them if they can somehow get Celtic back into this title race. The second part of it, I think, which is the key part, is on signing the deal, there would have to be assurances that they could make some significant signings in the January transfer window, hoping they can get past this month's games coming up, which I think are winnable even for a mediocre rank rotten Celtic side.
Well, what you're looking for immediately is if you do make the call to go and bring someone new in, what you're looking for is someone to come in and apply an immediate adrenaline shot into that dressing room. You want a reaction. That there's no scope now for another slip. If you want to go to Ibrox and know that it's still you're still able to turn it around, then you must win every one of the league games between now and then. On paper, it appears fairly straightforward, but the fragility of this Celtic side, I don't think, is to be underestimated either. But I think you're right. I think you're talking about an experienced head to come in and just galvanise the squad and see if you can get a reaction and somehow, however improbable it looks just now, try and turn things around. To go back to Eddie Howe, what I would say there is that this is a manager who done it at Bournemouth, and these are two different beasts. It's a very, very different proposition coming up and doing that at Celtic and in Glasgow, where the pressure is utterly incomparable to anything that he'll have been exposed to at Bournemouth. And I think many people underestimate that when they're on the outside looking in, but you can't come up to Celtic and get a draw and walk away and think you've done your job well that day.
Yeah, I mean, Tam, Eddie Howe, come on. I mean, if they announced Eddie Howe tomorrow, the word underwhelmed would be all across so many Celtic fans' lips, because that's exactly what I was looking at when they unveiled Ronnie Dyla to a fanfare. And I looked and I thought, Ronnie who? And for 2 years, he didn't have Rangers challenging them in any great way. And he managed to stumble through 2 seasons with a title.
Yeah, I don't think Eddie Howe would be a good appointment, Peter. Just going back to what Alison said there, she's right. You come up to Glasgow, you're a manager of either Celtic or Rangers, you can't get away with a draw, especially now the position that Celtic are going to be in. If they do pull the trigger on Neil Lennon, they bring someone else in, there's no room for error, absolutely none. You've got to win every single game, probably at the end of the season. You've got to beat Rangers at Ibrox. So, Eddie Howe done a great job at Bournemouth, but just by keeping them in the league, Bournemouth's a sleepy town. You can get away with a couple of draws, a couple of wins, a couple of defeats. As long as you're above that bottom 3 in English Premiership, you've done well. So I feel as if you've definitely got to bring someone in, if Celtic do. You've got to bring someone in who knows how to win things as a manager and who knows the Goldfish Bowl of Glasgow. And that would be Martin O'Neill, Gordon Strachan. Only short term. I think both of them are very, very good man managers. I think the two of them would come in, you'd get immediate adrenaline into the players, and you would get them playing for you again. I think you would get a wee bit of a buzz about the place again. You'd get a lift from the calibre of those two guys coming in. I'm not saying they're the answer long term, but from now to the end of the season, I think either one of them coming in, particularly Gordon Strachan, would give Celtic at least a chance of stopping Rangers. But I think right now under Neil Lennon, there is absolutely zero chance of Celtic winning the league. I think if you get one of them in, you give yourself a slight opportunity to do it.
Yeah, Ryan Christie yesterday, just before we were all emptied out of the stadium for obviously the security reasons, said the players still care.
I think the most important thing is that everybody needs to know is that we obviously still care. I think when you're going to run like this, people automatically straight away will say, they don't care for the club or they're not trying their best. Whereas, again, I think every single person out on that pitch today was absolutely desperate to get a result and put things right.
Well, the one thing I would say as a caveat to this, Roughie, is Neil Lennon might get the sack, but he's not the only one to blame. Some of the signings, some of the decisions over the last couple of years have been absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, and then we come to the decision, is Neil making the decisions? As we know in the modern day, it looks like the director of football makes a lot of big decisions and what players come into a club, and a manager thinks if he's getting a good player, he'll take him. So I don't know the right answer to that one. They will know who's the buying and selling people who are making these big decisions. So if Neil's part of that, then he's culpable the same as everybody else, but we don't know the answer to that. The thing I would throw at Peter, and I don't know, I'm not saying it would be, and a fantastic manager, Gordon Strachan, would Gordon Strachan be welcomed back by the majority of Celtic fans? Because he came in with a lot of bad stuff with the Celtic fans as well. A lot of them never bought into a lot of things Gordon was doing. And the other question is, would Gordon want it? Gordon's already been on record to say, like, I've done my 4 years. I'm now got a business running myself, promoting younger people. He's up at Dundee. It'd be interesting to know if he wants to get thrown right back into the fire and be the manager, as Tam says, who's got to win every game to the end of the season. It's a big ask.
It is a big ask, and I have to say, Roughie, to be perfectly honest with you, managers with ego, with a budget, and with a package that would give them either a short-term big hit of money, take these jobs. It's a huge job. It's one that I think we all have been saying needs someone who understands the club and who can galvanise the players. And I think those two characters come into that equation. I think Martin O'Neill and Gordon Strachan know how crazy this end of Scotland is and how obsessed everybody is with this 10 in a row and stopping 10 in a row equally across the city as well. So that's the way it is. And I think these two have got the credentials to come into what is quite simply, the maddest situation possible and be able to try and engineer at least a contest until May if we all get there. You can give us your thoughts on it, whether you think O'Neill, Strachan or someone else, because quite simply, Tam, we're all talking about O'Neill and Strachan because I don't see anybody else as a forerunner that could come in and understand it and take the reins and get it back on track.
Yeah, I was thinking about it last night, Peter, and the only other one that I could think of, and this will upset quite a few people, would be Stevie Clarke. I know he's done great with Scotland. He's got us qualified. He'll be looking forward to that. But that's the only other one that I could think of. I looked at the bookies betting. He was quite low in the betting. I think Stevie Clarke would be one that Celtic could maybe look at. Whether he would take the job or no, I don't know. But apart from Strachan and Martin O'Neill, I think Stevie Clarke's the only other one that I could think of that could come in.
I'm just actually thinking, I don't know, Alison, is there a tower in Edinburgh Castle where people have their heads chopped off for treason? I know. Can you imagine?
Just a thought.
Can you imagine deserting your country after just getting them to European Championships? I don't think so. Anyway,
I don't think he would want the hassle either. I don't think he would want the day-to-day hassle and intensity of Celtic.
Alison, the one thing he doesn't like, and this is the great thing about him, this is why I love him, he doesn't like people who are guilty of sectarianism. And I don't think he'd come to this situation where some of the poison that attaches itself to both clubs is something that he can't tolerate. So I just don't see him taking it. And let's not forget, we all had a right good laugh because I thought you were Tam. I thought you'd had a few swallows and you were about to go down the Maurizio Pochettino role.
Not that bad.
That the man Charlie went down on Friday.
There's no way I was pulling that hat out of the rabbit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Oh, you get pelters for that on social media as well. And Jason Wood, I'm going to give you a mention because I know you're having a laugh about it. And by the way, there's a lot of really good banter out there. Jason Wood says, "What about Craig Levein for the Celtic job?" Listen, that's the great joy of this.
Tighten up defensively.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, there'll be no strikers, and to be fair, there's no strikers at the moment anyway. The other thing about it, and let's be perfectly honest about this, people have a bit of banter, the fans, because one team's not doing well, another team's playing really well. And we're going to get on to the Rangers right now. But just before we do, let's have a listen to Stuart Kettlewell, because he's a delighted Ross County manager. They get a defeat against Kilmarnock last weekend. I think they had 1 win in 7. So he was well worthy of the praise of his Ross County side winning at Celtic Park.
I thought we had a game plan. We executed it very, very well. And then obviously you get a brilliant result at the end of it. So we know the run Celtic's been on. We know how good that they've been in cup competitions. Domestically, they've been sensational over the last number of years. So it was a mammoth task for us. It was a sizable task for us today, and I spoke about that all along. But our club's got a decent history in the last sort of decade or so of causing an upset, and I think that one's ranked right up there with the rest of them.
Yeah, well done to Ross County. And now Rangers, well, if you've got one side not doing well and the other side is absolutely like a well-oiled machine, you know the way Glasgow operates, and Rangers were rampant, Alison, against Falkirk.
Yeah, I was through at Falkirk last night, and I was very impressed with Rangers. And I know we're talking about Falkirk who are in League One, but I thought Rangers just looked very slick, very organised, and you just feel the weight of momentum that is behind that team. Jermaine Defoe kicked it all off, the first goal after 6 minutes, and they just turned the screw. They just there was just no opportunity for Falkirk to get back into it. And what you would say is you can sense a growing belief now about Rangers, and when you look at who's left in the League Cup draw, you really would have to fancy them now to go and win that first trophy of Steven Gerrard's regime, and their first major trophy since 2011.
And the other good thing about it, I think, from a Rangers perspective, apart from some great goals, Roughie, Kieran Dixon, Leon King, youngsters blooded in that team. So when you've got players there that are confident, the momentum's with them, you can throw in a couple of youngsters as well and still win 4-0.
Yeah, it just shows you when everything's going well for you. Everything is going well for you in every department. Right from the bottom to the top, and you couldn't pick anything in Rangers for the start of the season. Okay, they weren't happy losing some goals earlier on, but no, you're right, all the buys have been good. Anybody that's been bought has come on and done their bit, and they haven't been let down at all, and it just shows you the quality they've got as young boys. We've got a young goalkeeper for Rangers, Partick just now, who's absolutely superb. You've got these young boys coming on. You've got Mayo at Dunfermline. Everything is absolutely firing on all cylinders, and you would just want to be part of that Rangers setup at this precise moment in time.
Yeah, even Steven Gerrard impressed with the youngsters' display.
So I'll be watching them closely now to see how they react from that taste, and I want them to go and work as hard as they can now to get more opportunities. So I'll be watching them closely to see whether it goes to the head or whether they want to really see this as a start for their careers moving forward.
I mean, there must be tremendous excitement now because you've got this situation where I think there's a calm approach from Steven Gerrard. There's certainly, I think, a message to everyone to retain a sense of humility, take it one game at a time, and they can see the prize, Tam, so everybody wants to be involved.
Yeah, I think he's learned massively from last season. When Rangers won at Parkhead, he was screaming into the camera. He got a bit of stick for that. I think he's learned a lot from that. He's a young manager. He's going to be learning every game, every season, and he's learned to be more humble. I think even in social media, a lot of the Rangers fans, a lot of the very few Rangers fans that I know, are very humble as well. They're not shouting from the rooftops saying they're going to win this, they're going to win that. They've been very quiet, the guys that I know, and I think they've learned from last season, where they went in very confident after beating Celtic at Parkhead and then never turned up after the winter break. So they don't want that to happen again. And I think the manager, it all comes from him. He's keeping everybody's feet in the ground. Even he was talking about young players there. He's obviously gave a couple of them a wee taste it yesterday. He's wanting to see how they react. Do they get big-headed? They've made their debut for Rangers. Do they think they've made it? Or are they going to knuckle down and work hard and try and get in the team? Not just be on the fringes. So he's saying all the right things, Stephen, and I think he's keeping a lid on everything very well at the minute.
I think from the 9 years that we've been together, Roughie, I think we've always demanded that if anybody says they know humble Rangers fans, then we need the names of them. I'm amazed that Tam said he's got Rangers fans and they're humble. I mean, honestly, surely he's got names of them, Roughie. This is so unusual, isn't it? This is the back page. This is a back page lead tomorrow. McManus claims to have Rangers fans as pals. It's amazing. Well done, Tam. Excellent. Anyway, apart from anything else, the players that are coming in, John McLaughlin, the goalkeeper for one, saying that all the fringe players are trying to attract the attention of the manager.
When we've come in, it's just a case of being ready when called upon, whenever that might be. There's been league games recently where Alan's been doing well, the team have been doing well, we've got our opportunity. Of course, cup games like this, you might expect more chance of playing. But yeah, when the team are playing so well, when everything's going so well defensively as well, the performances are fantastic. You have to bide your time, and if you do get that opportunity, like a lot of the other lads tonight, you have to be ready to take it.
Just out of curiosity, Ali, I mean, we're talking about Rangers playing well. I think some of the goals they've been scoring over the last couple of weeks have been special as well. I mean, I thought Roof's goal in the Europa League was brilliant because the build-up play was lovely, the flick, the execution, and then, of course, you've got Barisic with free kicks, and even Jermaine Defoe, the way he just stroked his ball into the net yesterday was great.
I thought Tavernier actually scored the pick of the bunch, the deep cross coming from Barisic from the left, and then he caught it perfectly. I thought the technique was beautiful just to convert it into a goal. But the counterpoint to that is the fact that not only are they scoring goals and they're coming from a variety of different sources, they're just not losing goals. They look solid at the back. They're playing as a unit. They don't look under any pressure. There's a calmness about them at the back. There's no sense of rushing out. There's no sense of anxiety, in complete contrast to what you're seeing with the fragility at the minute with Celtic.
Yeah, absolutely. You can give us your views on that. Of course, we were wondering where the shocks were going to emerge over the weekend in the Betfred Cup. Of course, Hibs in the end edged it, Tam, by a 0-0 against Dundee. Were you happy? Were they worthy of it?
First half, Hibs were dreadful, Peter. I'll put my hand up and say that Hibs were really, really poor for the first half. Dundee, without creating anything, were probably the better side. They came out, I think they definitely got a wee injection from Paul McGowan's comments last week, because they had two players booked within the first 15 minutes for launching into tackles into Hibs players. So James McPhee had them really, really fired up for the game, and Hibs didn't match that early doors. And the one bit of quality and probably in the whole game was Kevin Nisbet's turn to slide Jamie Murphy in, and then Jamie Murphy coming in, and then from a tight angle, scoring into the far post. That was the only bit of quality in the game. It was a really, really poor game. Hibs were more solid at the back. Dundee were powder puff up front, to be honest. But Hibs probably just about deserved it. And cup games are all about winning, and they won the game. You obviously seen against Hearts not that long ago, where I thought Hibs were probably the better side and got beat. So the results, everything in cup games.
Yeah, here's the results from the weekend. I certainly thought Ayr United would have put up a bigger fight, but Livingston were rampant. Maybe just a little tribute to Gary Holt as he was out the door. 4-0 against Ayr United. St Johnstone now. Callum Davison was at the game yesterday watching the Ross County Celtic match, and I think he deserves tremendous credit. We'll talk about him in a moment. Dunfermline getting through. Alloa stunning Hearts. And St Mirren, for me, was, there was a great goal in that game for St Mirren, but the eventual winner, I don't think Joe Lewis would want to see it again, Roughie. It was an absolute howler if you're a goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's one of the ones you've just got to hold your hands up and say, well, nobody else's fault but mine. But I appreciate Derek McInnes coming out and saying, look, he saved us in numerous games this year, so he's not going to have a go at him. But at the end of the day, you won't have to tell him it's his fault. They're out the cup, because he's big enough and man enough to take it. And that's what happens when you're a goalkeeper. Sometimes you win games, sometimes you lose them. But I'm sure he'll come back. I think he's been a top class goalkeeper since he came here. But no, I always thought that was on the cards. I don't think Aberdeen are capable enough to lose 4 or 5 players, top players, and go into a game and expect to win it. Not the way it's going just now. And well done to St Mirren.
Yeah, I'm looking at the draw now, and the only team that I think are capable of stopping Rangers finally getting their hands on a major trophy after such a long wait are indeed Hibernian, who take on Alloa. St Mirren against Rangers, Livingston, Ross County, Dunfermline against St Johnstone. Ali, for me, I think everything points to Rangers and winning the cup. I think it's there for Rangers to lose it. I think, for me, they're stonewall certainties.
I would agree with you. I think it certainly looks that way. No disrespect to St Mirren, but you would have to anticipate that Rangers will go there as big favourites to win the game and go on into the semi-final. I think Hibs could potentially give them a game, assuming that is that Jack Ross's side overcome Alloa. But I think in some ways, I think it looks fated this season. that they go on and they win a bit of silverware, but certainly you can sense the belief within that squad, and I would agree with Tam. I think there's been a real difference in the approach this season. We've not seen any wild celebrations. There's been a very deliberate attempt to ensure that no one's speaking out of turn, that no one's making any bold predictions, that everyone's feet are on the ground, that it's a mantra given out that it's game by game. But what you would have to say at the minute is it is serving them very well.
Well, I have to be honest with you, and I kid you not, and I'm not just making this up, Roughie, but I was speaking to a Rangers fan today who basically said, that he was slightly hacked off, couldn't go to games, and he was more hacked off that he couldn't go on holiday, he said, but, at least hopefully in February, maybe there'll be fans allowed into the ground and he can get tickets for the League Cup final. So he had no humility whatsoever. He was just desperate to get to the League Cup final, and he'll undoubtedly ask me if I can get him tickets. But that's the nature of that draw, Roughie. I just don't see anybody other than Rangers because of the way they're playing, because of what's at stake. Can you imagine winning the League Cup in February, and then all of a sudden, woof, the push towards the title in May?
Yeah, I mean, we all saw it with Celtic when they were winning every game for the whole year. Everybody was on a high. You're just picking up trophies as if they're easy to get, and that's where Rangers are at this precise moment in time. Even if you go back to the league again, I don't. Apart, obviously Celtic aren't playing well, but apart from Celtic, I don't see any other team who's playing well. I said at the beginning of the season that Rangers or Celtic would win this league with 20, 25 points, basically because the other challengers, and I would take Hibs maybe out of that equation, but the Aberdeens, the Motherwells, St Johnstone have picked himself up a wee bit. There's not any other team showing any. If you come up against them, you go, this is going to be a right hard game today. There's nobody this year, apart from Rangers, who are well head and shoulders above everybody. And I don't want to do a Darren Jackson and say they could go through the whole season, because I'm not going to do that.
Go on, Roughie. Go on.
No. Because, but if you looked at the way they are now and the way all the other teams are just now, you wouldn't bet against it.
Yeah, there you are.
Did Darren not say that Hearts would go through the season? Who was it? Somebody said Hearts would go through.
He said they could.
That lasted long.
No, Roughie. He said he fancies Hearts to go through the entire season undefeated. But I look at it and I have to say, hey, fair play to Alloa, because the reports I'm getting from a number of people is that Alloa like to play, good football. They like to keep that ball on the deck, like to play a bit of football as well. And they've knocked out Hearts, and that is no mean feat, Tam, when you consider the budget of Alloa to the budget of Hearts.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a huge result for Alloa. I think Peter Grant's done a great job there. They're obviously part-time. I think that obviously at home, I think they've got a big advantage. I mean, I don't know, they keep taking that pitch in every season. I mean, it's so tight. It's like a matchbox. So it's very difficult to go there and play on that turf at Alloa. So it'll be a tricky game for Hibs. I don't think that anybody at Hibs will be taking that game for granted. Obviously, they're big favourites going into it. But as you said, they've put out Hearts, who have got a massive budget. A great squad of players. They've beat them, so if they can beat them, they can beat most clubs. So Hibs need to go there with the right attitude on the day and pay Alloa respect to go and get the result and get into the semis.
Yeah, Dougie's just sent us a message, Roughie, on Facebook to say, go on, Roughie, say Rangers will go through the entire season undefeated. Jinx them is what Dougie
He's want me to say it.
Clutching at straws, I fear. But listen. I think the key thing here is Rangers are playing well, and they've got players that are at the top of their game. Everybody's eager to get involved in it all. Young players coming in, and the manager saying the right things, trying to keep it all on track. And of course, in the other part of this equation, as we look at League Cup, as we look at the league title race, and so many of the points that are being raised on our Facebook feed, is quite simply that everybody in the next 24 hours, 48 hours is wondering whether Celtic are going to make a decision, Alison, that will make this an interesting title race, because, I think the general feeling, and certainly from my point of view when I look at this now, I think Celtic are one defeat away from the title being well and truly over, even before you hit 2021. That's why I think they will make that decision soon, and that's why I think they'll be looking. They'll be looking and saying, can they get a manager who can get Celtic to stumble through December and still be in touch going into the New Year game?
I don't think there's any question about it. I think we can all see what's in front of us. I don't think there's any evidence there to suggest that Neil could turn it around. I think he knows himself. And I feel for him because the pressure that he's under is monumental at the minute when you know it's just hanging over you. But I would fully anticipate that at some point this week there will be a decision made, and Celtic look to bring in something someone to give a jolt into the dressing room and try and get a reaction that wakes them up a bit and that underlines just how precarious the situation is if they want to defend the title and go on and win their 10 successive one.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you one thing, just as we looked over the Betfred Cup at the weekend, Tam, down south when they were playing the English Premier League, the amount of people now, the groundswell of opinion about VAR, it's almost like a tsunami. They absolutely hate it, and I am so happy we don't have it up here.
Oh, Peter, I mean, it's been a disaster down there. I mean, we were all for it, you know, if they'd done it right. But some of the rules, the regulations, you know, people's eyebrows been offside or their toenail or whatever, pointing for a through ball and been offside at the Leeds goal a couple of weeks ago. You know, penalty decisions, the handball rule, everything that is going about with VAR down the road is causing havoc. So you're right, I am so glad we've not got it up here. I think the referees do their best up here, and I think you've got to, you know, there's going to be mistakes happen, but down the road, when you're watching something and you know it's a mistake and they're still getting it wrong, it must do managers and fans' heads in, to be honest.
Yeah, well, Andy Robertson came out. He's not happy with it, Roughie, as well. I mean, he's absolutely blasted it. It's overshadowed the draw that Liverpool had with Brighton, so many of the decisions that were made.
Yeah, well, I thought it was getting brought in for the big decisions. I thought it was getting brought in for the ball being over the line or a in the penalty area. You know, I don't know where this handball thing came from. And as Tam said, you know, your heel over the line and everything. I was under the impression it was the big major decisions, but these other decisions are killing the game. There's no doubt about that. And it's a hard one for the referees because, I mean, I don't know who they're talking to or who they're going to or what they're doing. And I don't think they know either. They would like to make the big decisions, I'm sure, but yeah, it is a bit of a mess. But the only thing I like about it is if it gets the decision right. If it gets the decision right, big decisions right, then I'm for it, but not for all these other things.
Yeah, we're now getting to the point, Alison, where I'm looking at some of the decisions and his toes offside. I mean, that's how ridiculous it's getting. I mean, can you imagine that up here in an Old Firm game? It'd be a riot.
I think the litmus test of anything has to be whether or not it enhances the game as a whole, and what you would say at the minute is that it's not. And I have some sympathy for referees because when you're looking at it and saying, "Oh, his toenail or his left hand's offside" or whatever, by the letter of the law, if they have that in front of them, then they have to be seen to apply the rule. But like Roughie, I thought it would maybe have been used a bit more sparingly than what it has been up to date. But I think I just think it's not what we thought it would be. There seems to be a lack of common sense sometimes with decisions too, and I think it must be infuriating when you're on the end of some of those ones where you're still left scratching your head.
It's just as well, Peter. Just as well the boy out of Boogie Nights wasn't a centre forward. He'd be struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the benefit of our younger viewers who are maybe under the age of 18, that's a movie I think you'll have to ask your mum and dad if you can see. Anyway, apart from anything else, I'm going to say Rangers to win the League Cup. Tam.
Oh, I think they're obviously big favourites, Peter, but I think they've got a tricky game away to St Mirren. I think maybe Hibs, St Johnstone could give them a game. Listen, I think that they should go on and win it now, but I think Hibs are on their day. They've showed, if they can put a good performance together for 90 minutes, they can match Rangers. They drew 2 each from earlier in the season, so I think Rangers should win it, but I would tip Hibs to win it.
Yeah, I'm just going to say there, I just thought you were going to get into that kind of a coulda, shoulda, woulda, mighta. So you're tipping Hibs?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Alison?
Rangers.
Roughie?
Well, at this moment in time, I'm going to go even further. I'm going to go Rangers for the treble.
Well, there we have it. That is hey, I mean, come on, Roughie. Come on, Roughie. You've said Rangers for the treble. If Rangers are for the treble, surely, Roughie, you can stick your neck out a wee bit more and say they'll go unbeaten until the end of the season. I mean, you were almost there, but you've now got them to win the treble.
That's a big ask. They might get drawn against Alloa. You never know. So, I'm not going to be that bold.
Same old Alloa, always cheating.
Yeah. Roughie, just on a footnote to that, you've mentioned Rangers for the treble. What in particular has impressed you so much about Rangers that you think they're going to win all 3 domestic trophies, bearing in mind that the Scottish Cup from last year is being played on December 20th?
At this moment in time, you would nobody could disagree with the performances they put out there. The way the individual players are playing, every one of them's playing to a maximum. The guys coming off the bench are all playing to a maximum. They're all chipping in. There is nothing wrong at Rangers Football Club in the footballing sense. And I mean, it's unfortunate Rangers fans can't see them playing, because they're absolutely must be a joy to watch for the people who can watch them. And I can't say anything negative at all about Rangers on a football park. I can't see it.
Well, we started this programme talking about Neil Lennon. We'll finish it talking about Neil Lennon because I think the general view now is people are starting to look at the odds of someone to come in and replace him. It's a sad situation sometimes. Over the years, you don't like to talk about managers who are still in a job. I've got tremendous sympathy for him. Obviously, financially, he is a wealthy man. You live or die by your results. I certainly have tremendous sympathy for him for some of the abuse that I heard last night. I don't pay any heed whatsoever to social media as far as abuse towards the manager. He's given his all for Celtic. I think the decency of it all is where I think most Celtic fans will look and say, he came in, he steadied the ship. When Brendan Rodgers decided to go elsewhere, he got them over the line. He then, again, continued that momentum to win the league, albeit with the COVID call in March. And he leaves a team that's capable of possibly getting a quadruple treble. I think over the 20 years, he deserves better than abuse, Alison. I think, I have sympathy for him, but I think too many things derailed him at the end. And it's just one of those things where I think enough is enough for him. He'll know it, and I think the next 24 hours will confirm his end as the manager of Celtic.
I'd agree with you. I think a lot of players are culpable in his downfall. I think some of the abuse that he's taken is staggering. I think it's been quite vitriolic at times. There's been a personal nature to it, which I think is entirely uncalled for. I think you can have an opinion about whether or not the manager is the right man for the job, and you can express it in such a way that doesn't cause the upset that the scenes from last night done. And in a way, you mentioned social media there. In a way, it's almost last night was almost like an extension of that. I felt like you have this unadulterated ability to go and shout abuse and scream abuse at whoever you like. And we take the point that there are significant numbers of the Celtic supporters who have been unhappy with the decision for Neil to remain in his post. I understand that. I appreciate it. I can see the reasons why. But I thought the expression of that last night was pretty disgraceful in how it came about for a man who spent the best part of 2 decades at the club. And people talk about the right to protest and how if Celtic fans hadn't protested, there might not be a club there to go and support anymore as they look back towards the 90s and the Celts for Change and everything. But Celtic were a very, very different proposition there. They hadn't won diddly squat for almost a decade. This is a team who have won the last 11 trophies on offer. They can still win a quadruple treble. I think you're talking about a poor spell of results, and it has been poor. I don't think anyone can get away from that. But you're not talking of a decade of abject domination from your rivals. I think you have to put it into perspective.
And even with the increase in social media, Tam, lots of Celtic fans have, headed to Celtic Park to complain about managers that they wanted out. It's happened down through the decades when they wanted a manager out who wasn't performing well. I just have great sympathy for Neil because over the 20 years, he has suffered a hell of a lot of abuse, and some of it that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And it started off by saying it's Neds, Yobs, and troublemakers last night. But as a footballing analysis of Neil Lennon, I think I asked him yesterday if he could get any more out of this team. And the answer for me in my head was, I don't think he can. And I think when you get to that point, when they're not responding, when you try every option, a back three, a flat back four, guys that can't score goals, players that can't break tight defences down, when you've tried all that for the entire season, I think it needs something else now. And I think it would be a real dereliction of duty for the Celtic board if they didn't make this call swiftly to try and keep them on track for at least a title challenge.
Yeah, listen, Peter, I think his time's up. Listen, we all know Neil Lennon. I know him well. I met him a few times when he was at Hibs manager. I met him a few times. I like him. I like him as a guy. He's a really, really nice guy, but it doesn't matter if it's your friend or you don't know him. You're just looking purely on results. And the results at the minute are not good enough for Celtic Football Club. I think that's the first time they've lost 4 home games in a row and since 1956 or 1958. It's nowhere near good enough. 2 wins in 10. You can't survive that as a Celtic or Rangers manager. You just can't, especially this season. With 10 in a row at stake and Rangers try to stop it. It'd be the same if Steven Gerrard was 2 wins out of 10 and lost 4 games. Rangers fans would be screaming for his head. It's just football. It's just football in Glasgow. It's football in this country with the big two that you can't afford to go on that kind of run. And I think that Neil's time's up at Celtic. I think that will be confirmed over the next few days. And I think that you don't want to tarnish his legacy. I spoke about it earlier. He's a hero amongst a larger section of Celtic fans for what he done as a player and what he done as a manager. And hopefully he can keep that intact. But it's time for change at Celtic.
Yeah, Joseph McGonigal on Facebook says, people have the right to voice an opinion. Last night, I don't agree with, but I defend the right for them to do it. We are being treated like virtual spectators. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Joseph. Absolutely, I defend that right. The democracy of football is if you're not happy with the manager, you've got every right to put across your displeasure, but not in an abusive way. And Roughie, we said it at the start of this season, right off the back of the last season, as soon as this one got underway, we did mention this is going to be the most poisonous of seasons, and it's turning out that way.
Yeah, but as you said, we didn't expect it this early. I thought it maybe at the turn of the year when it really got hotted up, but it's not going to be. I can't defend him for the last 10 results. I really can. But at the beginning of the show, as a servant to the club for 20 years and what he's done in that time as a player and a manager, I would like to see a wee bit of trust here. I would like to see him getting the final. I'd like to see him getting the quadruple final. And then whatever happens after that happens. He doesn't deserve to be sacked. I would like Neil to make, if he's going to move, I would like Neil to make the decision. I wouldn't want him to be sacked. I would want Neil to say, look, I've done my best. I can't do any more. I'm going to move away. And I think you'd get a lot of respect for that because I think that word sacked isn't something you want on your CV. But I just think with what he's done, and you never mentioned the trophies that he's won as well at the club as a manager. So we're talking about 3 weeks, a cup final. I really would stick with him to the cup final.
Okay, listen, it's all about opinions. Some of the fans have had their say today. Rangers fans have certainly enjoyed the weekend. They are into the quarterfinals. Hibs are there too. Alloa as well. St Mirren, great for Jim Goodwin and what he achieved, knocking Aberdeen out as well. And of course, we mentioned there Callum Davison, St Johnstone and Livingston, who are looking for a new manager too. Well, I say two on the basis that Celtic could be looking for a new manager, or they could do what Roughie's talking about, which is stick with their gaffer. Stay tuned to PLZ Soccer. If anything breaks, we'll be all across it. We will be bringing the news to you, and of course, we'll be reacting to anything that happens at Celtic and elsewhere as well. Don't forget to like, share, and follow, and of course, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel too. Thanks to Roughie, who finally made it on board with us just at the last gasp there. As you can see in his house, he is in a festive mood. All the decorations.
He's moved his camera.
Well, he's moved his camera because the only reason he's moved his camera is so it's near a plug where he can plug his phone into. It's as simple as that. I know him like the back of my hand. It's called a complete lack of preparation. And over and above that, Ali is in there in the official office with not a Christmas tree in sight. Is it too early, Ali, to get Christmas decorations up as I look at Roughie's house?
It's only St Andrew's Day. Give it time.
Yeah, give it time. Absolutely.
Hopefully, Peter, a prison warden will come along and give me some for myself in the next couple of days.
Tam, I was just about to say to you, it does indeed look like the cell block there, with the food being passed under the door. But nevertheless, Tam, enjoyed your company. Alison, Roughie, don't forget to join us tomorrow. Hugh McDonald and Darren Jackson will join Roughie and myself. But thanks to you for watching and commenting.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.